Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. We've published one segment of the interviews I did with Rock and Maurice Hennessy of Maison Hennessy. This is a joint interview I did with both of them. They're cousins. And it was a lot of fun speaking to the two of them. Rock is a keen pilot, gone away from the family business, joined Embraer, Bombardier, and then he's come back. Maurice has been a sort of ambassador, plenipotentiary for quite a while. And, he gave me a lot of background as to the brand, the fact it's the most cited in rap music, the number of bottles they are, cases they sell, and then the day before I'd heard the results, and it was interesting because while I was talking to them, they're both farmers, and they'd said they both brought up the issue of climate change and the weather and saying, we can't control that. And when you looked at the results, they were unable to supply to meet the demand because of that. Very interesting. Home Thoughts, a beautiful lioness, Lady Luwa, photographed at sunrise in the Luwa Plain in Zambia. This is a photograph by Will B.L. On the note of lions, I rediscovered actually Derek and Beverly Joubert. Have a wonderful love story. Both South Africans met in high school, fell in love through their mutual love of wild places and wildlife, and their desire to protect them. During the past 30 years, they've made 25 films, of which I think I've watched 4 so far, and each have been just fantastic. In my view, the video, which is published by National Geographic, called The Last Lions, narrated by Jeremy Irons, must rank up there as one of the most fantastic bits of wildlife TV I've ever watched. And obviously it's because Derek and Beverly are actually deep in the Okavango Delta. They've been there for years. They're watching things happen over years. And then compressing it into this 90 minutes for us to watch. And just watch the first few minutes if you have time. I think it's about 5. And tell me if you've ever seen anything so intimate. This is the relation, how the female lioness greets her male lion, the way they touch each other. It's captured on film, and then you hear a lion's roar, and then you see the lions. It's just, and the film just continues like that. It's just unputdownable. And this is a spectacular male lion at dawn from the Kafue National Park in Zambia by Will B.L. as well. And doesn't he look spectacular? Reuters tweeted, Trump's Mideast plan is said to near completion. Zero Hedge tweets, is this a joke? Russia vowed to shoot down any and all missiles fired at Syria. And this was the Russian ambassador to Lebanon, interviewed by Hezbollah TV, which is Al Manar. And Trump responded via tweet, get ready, Russia, because they will be coming, nice and new and smart, he said. You shouldn't be partners with a gas-killing animal who kills his people and enjoys it. Missiles will be coming, says Trump, but the question is being asked by Asia Times, can Russia shoot them down? And Russia's made a big thing about its S-400s. And at some point, they've got to put up or shut up. They have to deter Trump, otherwise their intervention, which was largely successful, is going to be seen as defunct. GRTV is talking about how it appears that America has finally decided that no matter what, Syria, backed by Russia, either packs up and vacates or there will be a war. And then Rob Malley tweets, on the verge of military strikes on Syria, a momentous summit with North Korea a likely withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal, which is what I think is driving up the oil price, and more. Here's what Congress should ask Mike Pompeo. US made mistakes in Africa, including Gaddafi's death. This is the EU's parliamentary head, Tajani. The Americans can't do it. Their help is important. They've made a lot of mistakes. To kill Gaddafi is like to open the door to immigration, to Muslim Brotherhood, to the Islamist movement, and to ISIS. Gaddafi used to oftentimes tell the Europeans, I'm like the cork, and if you topple me, you've uncorked the entire continent. I wrote a piece in October 2011. It seems an eternity ago, doesn't it? Gaddafi's body in a freezer, and what's the message? The world's emptiest airport is a red flag. This is a very interesting piece in Next City. In a remote corner of Sri Lanka, China built billions of dollars of high-end infrastructure that now sits virtually abandoned. Was that the plan all along? The tsunami swept through coastal areas in the east and south of Sri Lanka, including Hambantota, an unremarkable district with a population of 660,000. Normally, it might take decades for an insignificant section of a developing country like this to recover, but Hambantota's infrastructure was rebuilt with astonishing speed. In fact, it was drastically expanded and enhanced with slick-looking, highly modernized commercial and transport facilities that never existed in pre-tsunami Hambantota. Saying that Hambantota's breakneck build-out is an example of a high-risk model of urbanization being executed in developing countries with sometimes disastrous consequences. The model is an outgrowth of China's One Belt, One Road initiative, a $1 trillion plan to build cities and infrastructure from highways to airports to hospitals in countries around the world. In 2017, the Sri Lankan government was forced to come up with a way to pull itself out of a spiraling debt brought on by its foreign-built mega projects. Economically, Sri Lanka is growing, but it has also been sinking deeper into debt and must repay a record $12.6 billion this year, in part because Hambantota's gigantic port has been sitting virtually unused, as has the international airport down the road. Both were built with Chinese money. To settle some of this debt, Sri Lanka ultimately signed over control of the port to China, which had financed the $1.5 billion project with loans. This momentous deal means that Beijing now controls another strategically important international port. There are now questions over whether the airport and other strain on Sri Lankan finances will go the same way. It's no coincidence that former Sri Lankan President Mahinda Rajapaksa originally hails from Hambantota. That's an interesting point as well. We've dug into the earth, broken great rocks, overcome inland and foreign threats, he said. We have now entered the path to being the wonder of Asia. And then, so basically, we've spoken about this before. I wrote about it in August 2017, which I said, when I said Sri Lanka, which had gorged on Chinese debt, has had to disgorge the Hambantota port to its creditor China. Djibouti is another area China has expanded into. Djibouti's president for life moves towards China, threatening US security interests. Again, this is something else we've spoken about. The base will house upwards of 10,000 people and will dwarf the nearby American, French, Italian, Spanish, and Japanese military facilities. This is China. Like his father before him, Guelleh has long been a US ally. However, the political winds in Djibouti may be changing. Perhaps the promise of Chinese largesse is pushing this change. I picked it up from a tweet from Jeffrey Smith, who said, he was quoting the same article, China's combination of tolerance of autocratic leadership dovetailed with bottomless pockets is paying dividends with the country's president for life. Going back to that article I wrote in August 2017, and I saw, and I was writing in that, we saw China form a military facility in Djibouti. And I was saying in my article that I thought the Chinese largely had taken control of the South China Sea, and that was of itself a mind-boggling geopolitical advance any way you care to cut it. It's now advanced its footprint in Pakistan, where it has leased the Gwadar port for 43 years, Sri Lanka, where it has the Hambantota port. Recently, we saw China formally open a military facility in Djibouti. And I said, when you take all these moves together, it speaks to a material Chinese advance. The pivot to Asia, which was supposed to contain China, is dead in the water, and China has sprung that trap, in my view. I was also talking about India's position. And I said China is also Narendra Modi's face in the Doklam Plateau, which sits in the tri-junction region of Bhutan, China, and India. It's as if Xi Jinping is goading Narendra Modi, who would be seriously ill-advised to take on the Chinaman in that remote plateau. Then I saw just now TikTok, which is Bloomberg. Leaders of New Zealand and Australia voiced great concern after reports China may build a military base in Vanuatu. Final bit of news, let's look at Zuckerberg. I like this description of him from Lee Sachs. Thinks Zuckerberg is like E.T., left behind on Earth, but no one came back to pick it up. And I think the pivot that needs to be executed, and I wrote about it in that article, which I'll come to, is that Facebook has acted as an intermediary. It has not taken permission. It has not disclosed what it was doing. It has hawked personal data at a mass scale, at times to people that they should not have been hawking it to, Russians, for example. And they've got to morph into an intermediary. An intermediary is selling or leveraging information, but in partnership with the owner of that information, you and me. And there was this great book that was written about this concept by a chap called John Hagel, which I read many years ago. I think it was published in 1999, called Net Worth. And he laid out this concept there. And therefore, I, for one, cannot see Zuckerberg pulling this pivot off. And that's why I would say sell Facebook on rebounds. Let me check where we are now so we have an idea. 166. So anything where you get close to 170 is going to look attractive. In the last year, Google properties saw their share of total time spent on digital media rise by 300 basis points. Facebook properties fell by 200 basis points. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 123.67, dollar index 89.60, Japanese yen 106.87, Swiss franc 0.9595, the pound 141.86, the Australian dollar had a good recovery 0.7749, India rupee, this is softening up because of crude 65.365, South Korean won 1069.64, Brazilian real 337.51, Egyptian pound 17.6440, and the rand back below 12, which I think is the buy zone. Above 12, it's to 11.9836. Dollar index, this is a 3-month chart. We've come off the 90 level, but for me 88 remains the key. European growth story has gotten a whole lot harder as the economic surprise index has collapsed. This is from Holger, and probably explains the lack of momentum in the euro dollar, which was last at 123.66 and is seen in this 3-month chart. And as we previously said, 125.60, where it's been 3 times, if I remember correctly, is the key area where sellers seem to be lurking. Once surging crypto stocks face delisting at the end of an era. Read this article, Long Blockchain Corp. You remember they were a tea company, suddenly said they were into blockchain and surged about 700%. And it's talking about how these companies are being delisted and how the strategy of announcing an association with blockchain is working in reverse. Let's move on to the commodity markets, obviously, where crude oil, look at this chart of Brent crude via T commodity. This is at close to $72 a barrel. We're at 3-year highs. We've come up very, very strongly since the beginning of the year. And it took me back to comments I used to make about President Obama, who I considered a financial warfare specialist. You will recall he put pressure on the oil price to bring a recalcitrant Putin to heel. Putin managed to get through that period. And then I think it was also to bring Saudi Arabia to the table, to sign that seminal, to get Saudi Arabia to the table, or at least get them, put them on the back foot so they could not blunt his rapprochement with his Hussein, his counterpart Hussein in Iran. And now I think we've seen it flipped on its head by Donald Trump, in the sense the Iranian rial, the Turkish lira, all at all-time lows, the ruble's getting creamed, crude oil is being sort of firmed up to ease, I think, the Crown Prince into position. You remember that WikiLeaks tweet I referred to, which was saying they expect the father to step down in about 3 months. Interesting Bloomberg Asia report about crude oil prices, a little short video if you're interested. This is WTI, and that's at 3-year highs as well, above $67 a barrel. Gold lifted up in this geopolitical environment where people are seeing geopolitical tail risks spike, now at $1,350. Coming to sub-Saharan Africa, Zimbabwe has bought 4 Boeing 777 aircraft from Malaysian Airlines and a further 8 Embraer aircraft in a bid to turn around the fortunes of the state-owned airline. Will retain Air Zimbabwe's debts of $330 million and was banned from operating in the European Union in May last year on safety concerns. In fact, I was wondering when that whole scandal hit where Malaysian Airlines were going to be able to offload their aircraft. And I take it back to something I wrote in August 2014 about MH370. I said the signal announcing the arrival of this new arrhythmic normal that we currently exist in was the disappearance of MH370. For years he'd been studying the phenomenon of chaos, of which an arrhythmic heartbeat was a perfect example. His Excellency Johann Borgstein told me that the signal announcing this new arrhythmic normal was the disappearance of MH370. Since then, planes have been falling out of the sky like flies. And the uncertainty around MH370 and MH17, which is sharpened by the way the story is seemingly turned on and off, took me back to Don DeLillo. We are not witnessing the flow of information so much as pure spectacle or information made sacred, ritually unreadable. The small monitors of the office, home and car become a kind of idolatry here where crowds might gather in astonishment. Howard French has written a great review in New York Books, and in it he says the Africa question looms as one of the most momentous human challenges for the remainder of the century. Europe is already in a state of distress about the flow of refugees and migrants from Africa, and in seeming denial about the scale of this pending demographic transformation and the potentially devastating impact of climate change on the continent. The Africa question looms as one of the most momentous human challenges for the remainder of this century. How can the damage of colonial organization be remedied and Africa become much more integrated into global economic systems? Despite the scope of the challenge, one hears surprisingly little discussion of this from James Oyewitz. Look at this selfie with the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, the man of the people, asks Abiy Solomon, who tweeted it. Ethiopia's new Prime Minister pledged on Wednesday to address grievances in his native Oromia region. And if you look at the visuals of some of these video clips, you can see he's got everyone excited. I remember someone saying he's like Barack Obama, but the challenge is he's absolutely saying the right things, but can he execute? Because he's got the TLF deep state sitting right behind him. And the question is he on a leash? Namibia's Guy Cobb strongly denies involvement in corruption. This is around a uranium mine that was purchased by Arriva. You now have to pay the government over $900 a year to be a blogger in Tanzania, would you believe? South African all shares minus 5.6% year to date. Dollar versus rand, as I've been saying, it's a buy when it pops above 12. The Nigerian all shares up 6.81% this year. Ghana's economy expanded by 8.5% last year, according to provisional estimates, more than doubled. So they're really on the rebound. You can see that in the stock market, which is the best performing stock market in the world, and it's up 31.89% this year. Angola overtakes Nigeria as owner of the most battered oil currency. After a series of devaluations that started in January, Angola's kwanza has now lost 55% of its value against the dollar since June 2014. Russia's currency is not far behind. Have a look at the chart that Paul Wallace published. Kenya remittances jumped by nearly half in February to hit 21 billion shillings, probably undercounted by 50% in my view as well. And I said remittances are indeed a wonderful silver bullet. Our inward remittances have been accelerating to fresh all-time highs and speaks fundamentally to Kenya Inc.'s intellectual capital and monetization thereof. The shilling is at 101 versus the dollar. The Nairobi all shares up 13.41% year to date, firmed 0.5% yesterday, and is 1.22% below a record high hit earlier this month on the 5th of April. I'm looking forward to interviewing Lamine Manjang, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Standard Chartered here in East Africa. The share price is up 11.538% this year. You're getting a very big dividend, which will be paid out pretty soon. The earnings per share was 19 shillings and 64 cents and trades on a price earnings ratio of 11.813. I think it's got a lot more to go this year. The NSE 20 is up 3.21% this year. Kenya's charcoal business is worth an estimated $1.33 billion a year. So it's all about Africa. Charcoal, the main source of cooking fuel for a large majority of Kenyans, is sourced from forests, causing environmental damage. But charcoal can be obtained from biomass conversion of agricultural waste. Airtel gained 1 million subscribers from Riders' Resistance. You'll remember when he called for a boycott of Safaricom, and I actually argue that Safaricom is more of a need than a want. 1 million is a fairly respectable number, but I don't think it could have been far more dramatic, so I think it's within bounds. Thank you for stopping by. I'm deeply grateful.